I saw this video going around this morning, and I'm sure it's just a meme video. If I can get it to play. Why isn't it playing? There we go. Right. As you can see, a chap with a British flag replying to Rupert Lowe MP. Well, the only way to do it is that his army. Send for them. The military police. France should do the same. Such great... blah, 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 blah. All caps. Now, I'm sure this is a meme. I'm sure this isn't a real thing. But I think it does capture a very present spirit in the country at the moment. And that is, everyone is furious. Everything's crap. Everything's falling apart. And people have decided that democracy just isn't that big a deal anymore. And they would rather get the problem solved. Have you encountered any real-life examples of this, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to out people.
You don't have to name names
publicly, but certainly there's a weariness and frustration and righteous indignation growing in the public at large. I think a particular cause of this isn't just the weekly casualties of diversity that anyone who's genuinely interested in what's going on in our country can find in the news, but just the palpable sense of decline, and also the fact that what distinguishes the Boris way from previous migration flows into this country, immigration being the main cause of people's concerns, of course, is that it is just so visible on the streets of this country, and the consequences of their being here is so visible. And so what were once kind of, very familiar, homely hamlets and towns are now just sort of saddled with these people. I saw one the other day just five miles away from Windsor, which is a beautiful city about 20 miles west of London. There was just this like Somali chaps, seemingly, just causing a nuisance on a lovely village road, and people see this tangibly in their lives, and they think we're supposed to live in a democracy. You would imagine that, given that one of the words in democracy is demos, the demos would be able to exercise some control over who the demos was. I mean, that is arguably the most fundamental principle of self-determination. If you can be involuntarily, if freedom of association allows you, freedom of association is violated to such an extent that the the demos doesn't exercise control over what the demos is, then in no way can that be described as a democratic country upholding the principle of popular sovereignty. And so people just sense that we're a democracy in name only, and if we're pretending to be a democracy and getting nothing for it, for not being a democracy.
It's worse than getting nothing for it.
Getting actively replaced for it. We may as well just be more open and go for something much more like a military strongman. I'm not saying that I would support that, but I do understand why people feel a need for there to be a stronger sense of identity between ruler and ruled. And often in the past, one man embodying the will of the people rather than these kind of oligarchic processes manipulating the will of the people strike people as more attractive.
There is definitely a sense of that.
I've actually found that there's not a single person in my life anymore that is unwilling to talk about the negative effects of mass migration, which is a massive change from just 5 years ago. And I don't think it's that everyone who objects to my political opinions has disappeared from my life. Quite the opposite, actually. Everyone's been quite supportive, and I'm friends with quite a few left-wing people.
You were right all along, Josh, is what they're saying.
Yeah, there is an element of that going on. And I think people are far less afraid now that they see the existential threat to their civilization, more or less, not to sort of amp up the threat of it. But I think that is how people are perceiving it. And I think that people's quality of life has tangibly gone down. The things that people are hearing are going on in our country are, quite frankly, horror stories compared to what we're used to.
150 stabbings a day.
Yeah, well, one stabbing in the country would have been national news for weeks before mass migration. And so people don't forget that sort of thing. When it comes to their personal safety and their quality of life, I think actually you've got to give the public a lot more credit for these sorts of things. I know people can be quite inattentive, and it can be quite frustrating when you're following politics that people aren't necessarily aware, but they are aware of this sort of thing because it's of interest to everyone. And I think that this is what is shifting the public towards being more accepting of these sorts of things. And I don't pretend that my circle in my life is representative of a greater whole, but I do think that there is a general trend of people more willing to talk about these things. And we see it in the media discourse, don't we? That now when people bring up mass migration, no one's saying that's racist, you can't talk about that. That era is
interesting,
almost over, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone's sort of conceding that, okay, this is legitimate to debate now. There is a problem here that is legitimate, and people are justified in some cases in talking about it.
Yeah, no, I think you're on something here, because I was thinking about this the other day, because I saw someone on Twitter call me a racist, and I was like, wow, it's been a long time.
Very quaint.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's like it's been a long time since I've been accused of being a racist, and it was a totally minor comment, and nobody cares, and it was just like that.
It's also one of the things that makes it especially frustrating that at the very same time when the left's already very blunt rhetorical tools are becoming blunter still through overuse, and have become blunt through overuse over the last 20,
They're not even
20
blunt
to
now.
30 years.
They've become floppy.
Yeah, and
I think
badges of honor even. In some cases, it makes it very, very frustrating that rather than realizing the opportunity that this presents to do things that would have been unimaginable 20 years ago, like, what makes it even more frustrating, the fact that Reform and Farage in particular have been tacking to the center, because public opinion isn't just this fixed thing. It's something that you can help to mold and to reshape, not by being Machiavellian, but by just being honest about what's going on
By doing the right
in
thing.
the country. And you can win people over, and people have never been, people's sentiments and their intuitions and their votes have never been more up for grabs, and you should be leaning into that rather than it's a pattering around.
It's strange how Farage is desperate to be behind the curve of the wave, and it's like, but the thing is, the polling is all in. We know how the British public feels about the current state of affairs. Even Liberal Democrat voters would like, I saw a poll the other day, 52% of Liberal Democrat voters just want every illegal deported. That's Liberal Democrats. More Labour, obviously almost every Conservative and Reform supporter.
1990.
Yeah, and something like 75% of Labour. And it's like, look, there's just no one on the other side of this. You can't drop the ball by saying, I'm going to deport the illegals. And what did Farage do on the Winston Marshall podcast? No, was it Marshall?
It was with Edgerton, yes.
Well, he's like, no, I just don't want my name attached to mass deportations. It's impossible. It's like, so what are you talking about? It's the most salient political issue right now, and everyone's in favour of it.
Another quick detail I'll put in is that what's especially remarkable as well is the extent to which public opinion is radicalising at a time when, God bless the British public, they don't actually know a huge amount about the details of the issues concerned.
No idea.
So, for example, they have the right intuitions and the right sense of what's going on, so that I don't begrudge them that. But when you ask British people, the median British voter, like, what do you think net immigration is running
70,000.
I think it's 70,000.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Closer to 1 million. So think how much more.
It might be over 1 million. We don't know.
Indeed, but taking the official figures, it's at least 1 million probably, and so think how much more radical they'd be. Think how more aggressive still that tweet would be if he actually knew anything.
He'd do it in bold, wouldn't he?
I'm going to add something a little bit controversial here. I think that Black Lives Matter has done more for Britain than Nigel Farage has, and I'm saying that in the sense of Black Lives Matter was absolutely perfect to get us in the position that we're in, because not only was it an incredibly ineffectual movement in its aims, and a lot of the money was provably siphoned off to people that were just out for enriching themselves.
Absolutely no purchase in Britain as well.
Exactly. But not only that, it made it acceptable to then start talking about identity more, because it was constantly under attack, and there's this immune system reaction against that, whereby British people started to realise, yes, we do have an identity actually, because I think people sort of forgot or didn't think about it to the same degree that we do now. And we've sort of opened Pandora's box, and we can't put that back away again now. This is going to be something that is going to be a part of the public consciousness for the rest of people's lifetimes, I think. And I think that people's awareness, okay, we're not actually like these other groups of people that are coming to our country, that is a very invaluable insight that is now circulating very widely amongst people that, quite frankly, surprise me. Like people that I used to think of as very left-wing, now just concede this and say, yeah, of course this is the case.
We covered the Politics Joe podcast the other day.
We did, yeah.
Where I don't know if you saw it, but basically...
I think I saw your clip of it.
Yeah, they were talking about English identity, for anyone who didn't see it. And after the first sort of 15 minutes of them blustering as left-wingers, they just conceded absolutely everything.
The whole ground.
Like, yeah, no, where's our parliament? Where's our, rights movements and stuff like that? It's like, yeah, that's a great question, isn't it?
Well, also, when you're living in a very settled, mild-mannered, homogeneous England, the question of identity doesn't thrust itself upon you any more than the fact that a goldfish is swimming in water particularly matters to the goldfish. It's when you put something new in that, this is just a metaphor, when you put something that's not water and thereby corrupts it to some extent separates it from, that is distinct.
Add oil to the water.
Exactly, and the goldfish will notice it, and likewise take the goldfish out of the water and it will also notice. And so you're right, the question of identity is back on the table, whether we like it or not.
So one of the things that, and this is another just amazing paradigm example that I'm going to play through in a second, is Labour going to people's doorsteps. Now, I don't envy Labour Party activists having to go to people's doorsteps. Hi guys, can we count on your vote? This is the kind of reaction. Oh, I clicked on the wrong thing there. This is the kind of reaction that they've been giving, and.
Hello there, my name's John. I'm calling from your local Labour Party.
Labour can fuck off. Labour fuck this country right up. Fuck off, go on, fuck off. Fucking Labour, all they've done to this country, all they're for is fucking Muslims and all the shit. That's all they want in this country. This country's fucked. You fucking lot, go on, fuck off. Fucking Labour scum.
Just the ranting carries on. It's just the clip ends. And to be honest with you, that would be exactly my reaction, but probably with more swearing and possibly slightly violent. I would have been exactly as angry as that guy. And this is a honestly.
I also love the look on the Labour guy's face. I get the sense that's not the first time that's happened to him that day.
Yeah. Well, this is another thing, isn't it? Like when Corbyn was in charge of the party, they kept getting on the door. I just hate Jeremy Corbyn. I'm not going to do it because Jeremy Corbyn obviously a traitor. And so this is basically what Aaron Bastani found when he went to Runcorn, because of course we got the by-election there today. If you're there, vote for whatever you want. I don't care. Just it doesn't matter to me.
Not Labour, hopefully.
Yeah, well, yeah, but, who cares? The voting, will that make a difference? But what's interesting is Aaron was going around and talking to regular people, and none of them are happy. Right, even the people who were Labour voters were not happy with Keir Starmer and with Labour and with what they've been doing. I mean, some quotes are Labour are scrounging parasites. I don't like Starmer because he doesn't know what a woman is. Everyone he speaks to is furious about paying for the illegals.
It's
That's
also
something that comes up a lot.
Worth adding that this by-election is happening because a Labour MP punched one of the electorate. So not only is that bad press in that area, but also they elected a Labour representative once, and now they're coming out with a lot of this, right?
Because there's a new constituency that was created. And so they elect a Labour MP, and then he punches some guy for some reason. But yeah, so everyone repeatedly, I mean, one of the chaps he's speaking to is just, oh yeah, everyone's talking about the illegals, because Aaron is doing a good job and is gauging how often they bring up subjects. And there's one market trader he's talking to is just like, yeah, no, everyone's talking about the illegals. Why are we paying for them in the hotels? This is outrageous. And everyone is genuinely outraged. I mean, at one point at 7:15, he describes them as bringing in a conquering army like William the Conqueror to take over England. It's like, right, okay. Now, I'm not saying that's happening, but if that's the general perception of what's happening,
it's less honest than that, really.
Yep. It's even worse. I mean, the advantage of a formal declaration of hostilities is that you can actually fight back.
Oh, yeah.
Presumably with your own state on your side.
Yes.
With military equipment and machinery, whereas what unarmed conquest is much harder to fight by virtue of the fact that there is no such formal declaration of hostility.
I've honestly said this before. I would rather it just be an open war. Then we can fight.
Yeah, then the argument makes itself.
Yeah, exactly. And there's one thing we're good at, it's organisation. But yeah, so you got lots of people. He managed to find one diehard Labour woman.
Really?
Yeah. He was obviously there all day. He found one diehard Labour woman who said, quote, Nigel Farage is a fascist and we're a tolerant nation. It's like, I mean, Nigel Farage is not a fascist.
Also, if we're a tolerant nation, why are they polling like 25% of the electorate?
Yeah. And he bumped into a chap who was like, no, Liberals, Labour, Tory, Reform, they're all the same. I hate them all. And towards the end, people pointing out that immigration is the big issue that's affecting everyone, and because everyone knows it, because like you're saying, they don't actually know the numbers, but they're looking at the street and saying, where is this? And they don't call it the Boris wave, but where is it? I did my walking around Swindon showing how it's declined video, and I was speaking to a chap who I've known for years now who runs a comic shop, and he was like, yeah, it seems just after COVID it's just gone wild. It's like, yeah, that's exactly right. He's seeing the effect of the Boris wave, even though he doesn't follow politics and is not interested in any way, shape or form.
It's actually very heartening that people are so accurate in their assessment of the situation, because I found previously I've caught myself being quite cynical about the electorate for obvious reasons, and actually it seems like people are catching on now. There's a real problem.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And so there's a sort of I don't know who this chap is. He's not like a random nobody. He's got an account and stuff, but he I think represents a large swathe of working class opinion in this country.
I think everyone's asking themselves the same fucking question at the minute, and it's very simple. It's like, when are we going to do something about it? It being the fucking government, the state of the country, all the shit that's going on, like fucking mass uncontrolled immigration, tax to fucking death, cost of living crisis. I mean, they're allowing private companies to run riot, tax us to death. The water bill's just fucking doubled again. I mean, everything they fucking do is set up to keep you dumbed down. Yeah, I've had enough. Yeah, I had enough during COVID, to be honest. Want something done. Let's all start fucking videoing ourselves, all start taking direct action.
Right, well, I'm not suggesting anyone takes direct action or anything, but again, I think he represents a large swathe of this country. Again, the working class area of the country. Now, if you're in a Liberal Democrat voting area, you probably don't know many chaps like this.
I've noticed a phenomenon whereby whenever I go for a lovely quaint village in rural England, there is always one or two Lib Dem signs. I'm just like, oh right, so you're voting in favour of something that you're almost entirely isolated from, except it won't stay that way forever, will it?
If it helps, a Lib Dem sign also means I'm a secret racist. So
that's true.
As we saw from Ed Davies'
redemption arc,
and Keir Starmer came out and said the same thing. He endorsed that very same thing. So the centrist ads are actually secret racist. They just need essentially social permission, which is what they're lacking at the moment. But anyway, the working class of this country are absolutely sick of it, and I completely agree with them. And they've arrived at a point where there's just no light at the end of the tunnel. And so they're like, yeah, no, it is the government that is the problem. It's the state. And this is correct. This is the quangocracy set up by Tony Blair with all the various human rights legislation and ECHR and all this sort of nonsense. It all is the problem. And again, it's percolating completely through everything. So I saw this really superb thread of Luke Trill, who works for the More in Common Foundation. I think he's the founder of it, and he did focus groups in Beverly, Hull, Scunthorpe and Peterborough, and without doubt the disillusionment was the worst I've heard. And just some of these quotes is incredible. I love this. Gary, sales manager in Bourne, right? He says, I've actually given up on the system, if I'm being totally open and honest with you. Yeah, nothing ever changes. You go from one bunch of lying so-and-sos to the other. It's almost going to sound really extreme, but the country almost needs a coup d'etat and needs someone to come in and say, right, this is what we're doing and you will conform. There's no proper leadership by anyone. Nobody likes any of the candidates. Nobody really trusts any of them. It's almost like we need the king to just say, right, I'm in charge and this is what we're doing. And that, honestly, is a conversation I've had with normal people at some point. They've literally said to me, why isn't the king doing something about this? And that's fascinating because for my entire life, since the World War II, the idea, in fact, since before that, the monarch was informally an apolitical role, and so you'd think it'd be in everyone's minds that, well, the king's just a symbolic thing, he's not going to do anything. But no, it's still in the back of the minds. We are a kingdom. The king should be doing something because we're suffering, and it's very interesting that's still in the back of their minds. And people have said to me, is the king able to do anything? I'm like, he's able to do whatever he likes. He's the king, actually. He could dissolve parliament tomorrow, and there's literally nothing parliament could do about it.
Kings have dismissed ministers over, even since 1688, since we became a so-called constitutional monarchy, over things far less severe than this. I mean, William Pitt basically stood down at George III's urging in 1801 because William Pitt wanted to extend toleration to Catholics in the kingdom, and King George III thought this was incompatible with his coronation oath, and so it basically got rid of William. I think William Pitt the younger came back later, but that's nothing compared to decades of sustained replacement migration. Yeah. I should have thought that the bare minimum a king should do is look out for the interests of his own people and their future and their posterity. You
might think that, but King Charles was giving a nice salam alaikum during his Easter message.
Indeed, yeah.
So it was very frustrating. But yeah, I was having this conversation with just, again, non-political people who have suddenly turned to me and said, so you know about politics, what's going on? And can the king do something? And I had to point out, yeah, the king, he has the control of the army. They pledge their allegiance to him. The parliament are his servants, he could at any point dissolve the parliament. And moreover, the parliament couldn't pull a Cromwell in this day and age. There's no way in hell the parliament would be able to resist it in the slightest. No one is fighting for this parliament. They would not be able to raise an army to resist him, so the king could just take over. But of course, Charles is a woke globalist and he won't do anything of the sort. And so that was pretty frustrating.
This is why I think we need to work on Prince George. I think William probably beyond saving at this point.
What's William like? I don't really know much.
I get the sense that I get the centrist dad vibes from William. Whereas I think George could be, a radical zoomer of sorts.
I was hoping William would be a bit more based.
I think William is also quite canny in terms of optics. He's he's not fallen for the same mistakes that his brother has. Let's just say.
Yeah, this is true.
I think the interesting thing about this is that people are at a point now where the government's authority is so illegitimate in their mind that they're looking for other forms of authority in the king. Yeah. And of course, they're not going to find it there. But the fact that we've got to this point and it's commonplace enough that you can encounter it in your daily life is something to take note of at the very least.
I mean, people are just openly saying this sort of stuff now. Like this 5 years ago, even during COVID, like Boris Johnson comes out, right, we're locking down the country, folks. You've all got to stay in your houses for 2 weeks or whatever it was. No one was like, okay, yeah, we kind of need to overthrow the government. Everyone's like, oh, I guess we just got to go along with it then. And 5 years later, it's 5 years later, we're at the point where Gary, sales manager in Bourne, is thinking, yeah, we do need a coup d'etat. If only we had a new Cromwell, things might get better. Which is, again, it's just bonkers when you think of the kind of normal people, middle manager types who, I mean, he works in an office all day, Gary. Gary, you watch like normie TV, you watch X Factor and stuff. And he's like, yeah, we need a revolt.
Yes, and he's put his finger on one of the major problems that all democracies face, which is that while the governing principle of any democracy is that of popular sovereignty, in practice, the people having been set free, having been empowered theoretically by democracy, they're actually quite poor guardians, God bless them again, of the power that democracy theoretically confers on them, because many of them have neither the inclination or the interest to be as actively involved in politics. So there is always going to be a minority that's in charge, and if that minority doesn't share the fundamental values and beliefs and interests of the people over whom it rules, it will not serve them, but remold them and reshape them, sometimes by actively sponsoring replacement migration, but otherwise by just nudging them in certain ways, trying to indoctrinate their children, trying to do all these sorts of things. And another thing that makes this very difficult to fight is because it's an oligarchy, it's a small group of people, power is dispersed in a way that makes it very, very difficult to fight. And towards the end, it's interesting that he's putting a personal face on power, and a singular personal face on power, by saying we need the king to just say, oh, we need a coup d'etat where one person just comes in charge and says, I'm going to do this. Because when you put a face on authority, it makes that person accountable in a way that a process or a shady oligarchic class is not accountable. And in many ways, it's more consistent with the true spirit of democracy, because people would be much happier with a patriot king than they would be with a treacherous oligarchic class, even though the processes would be less democratic. The outcomes would be more democratic, and that's the ideal. And that's the ideal of some, like Bolingbroke writes. Lord Bolingbroke wrote the idea of a patriot king, which advances this critique of democracy in very humane ways. But another problem is that since the 1940s, any desire for sort of concerted executive action of the kind that Gary is calling for is just equated with fascism. Which isn't true. Yeah,
and it would be completely outside of our tradition anyway.
Very outside, very uncharacteristic of English people.
Yeah. Gary is not calling for fascism. No. What Gary is calling for is a Cromwell. And there are lots and lots of Cromwell edits going around on TikTok at the moment, which I'm going to play.
Put your faith in God and keep your powder dry. I am resolved that this battle will be won. Therefore, it is my intention to return to Cambridge and raise an army of handpicked men, the like of which this nation has never seen. Though we be outnumbered, we shall win this battle, I promise you. The king is not England, and England is not the king.
It's very interesting that they've got Radiohead in the background there, because in 1997, I think it was, on the ascent of Blair, they released OK Computer, which is still one of the best encapsulations of how the modern world, the sort of liberal world order, is soulless and crushing and miserable. And even though Tom York is very left-wing, the lead singer, and maybe some of the members as well, a lot of what they're hitting on there is true. And I think that they've chose that in the background to encapsulate the mood of the country in a way.
Very interesting. And Gary, sales manager from Bourne, is probably like, yep, I have to go and join the new model army now to fight Parliament because they're the problem. You know, you may well be watching these Cromwell edits on TikTok, you know, who knows? But I mean, that was just my favorite one that I saw. But it's genuinely something that's in the cultural milieu at the moment.
It's indicative of a cultural mood. I hope it's obvious to all people that we're not actually saying that this should be what happens, apart from anything else, because if you are going to do something like this, and again, I'm not recommending it, then there's no room for half measures. I mean, as Benjamin Franklin said, you know, we must all hang together, or we should all hang separately. And then during the American Revolution, you need to be very, very committed to it. And the fact is that compared to where Britain was in the 1630s and 1640s and 1650s, when the Civil War was sort of, we were in the foothills of a civil war, and then of course it blew up in 1642. It was a very young population full of very, very, very motivated people, many of whom had been in battle before. They were very hardened people, whereas we're a very domesticated population, a much older population. The idea that anything like this would be
I don't think it's possible now.
It's not possible, because you either need to go the full hog, or you don't do it at all.
But on the plus side, what I think this means is that democratically the paradigm is ripe for change.
Yes, that's right.
So anyone who comes along who is very clearly not part of the Blairite consensus, I think actually, because I mean, like as we saw in the last election, 40% of people don't even vote. And I'm guessing, I asked Matt Goodwin about this, and he was like, well, they don't really think the political system is serving their interest. And he is a pollster, so he would know. And I was like, yeah, so why isn't Nigel Farage attacking towards them rather than saying, hey, actually, I am a Blairite just like you? It's like, okay, the ground is incredibly fertile. But anyway, we'll leave that there.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.